There we go. Red soul.
Hey, I just have some.
If you genuinely have, I even want to talk about it. You know, when you get out of it, like, oh, now they does. Everything they hated, everybody. That's well, like, they have the police. That's still. It was a small house, and I was like, oh, I don't know if he's gonna show up. Girl, look at people later. I said, it didn't be. I don't know, be out of here. You know, it's suspicious. What do they call it?
I'm waiting. We're gonna get started at 6:01.
You're late.
I'm sorry. Welcome to meeting number 4, 3. 3 or 4 of the severe weather meeting. Today we're going to talk about the weather, the tropics, of course, and then I'm going to go to on the storm chasing event I worked on Sunday. And then we're gonna, well, before that, we're gonna talk about a little bit of weather down, like something you didn't to talk about with that. But what else? And then Anthony, do you want to bring up the person that's coming next week? Yeah, I don't know much about it. But if you want next week, I'll do it. You want to run a meeting? Wow. Look at you. Okay. So our weather, obviously it was storms pretty much all day and rain around the entire United States. Frost advisory, I haven't seen that in forever. And that's how you know, yeah, frost advisory up here. Very cold air. I don't like it. That's part of the cold front that's coming down here. It's stationed right here right now, or around probably a little bit farther down now. But yeah, you can see the change in wind right here from the northwest, and then you can see the boundary right here. What's there? Out west, there's flash flood advisories and warnings, and embedded severe thunderstorm warnings. You can see the cloud tops are pretty high over here. It's probably why there's at least a thunderstorm warning over there and a bunch of rain, and then just scattered decently high clouds over here. Let's see, they're pretty thick over here. They get thinner as they travel over here. Lingering showers over us. Is there anything else to talk about? Oh yeah, and then basically for here, it's gonna stay pretty cold. I call cold, but pretty cool. So you can see a big drop Thursday, high in the 65 for the most part, and then a low. I think the NAM K4, sorry, has a low of 35 for Friday, and I don't like that. Yeah. Yeah, and some models are showing it's supposed to get back in the 80s after that. Some are showing 70s. I'm probably gonna see more 70s, and then 70s and 60s pretty much after that. Yeah, I don't think there's much else to talk about with our local weather. Anthony, you want to do your thing?
Do I want to add anything?
You want to add anything, or you want to do your?
Oh, I don't have much.
Stand well, please, thank you.
I don't really have a whole lot to add, I guess. There's not a lot going on unless you live in Ohio or
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about.
somewhere over in the northern northeast section.
No, that's fine.
Guess there was a slight risk over here. Okay. Yeah, that's really it, nothing too crazy. Let's see what these actually say. Abilities. Very low tornado chance, mainly for wind on that severe thunderstorm watch out here. Low chance of hail, so not a lot of action. But if we go into the tropics, you can really, really see what's going on here. We do have a Hurricane Fiona.
Yes.
It is having a great time right now. It looks like it's doing a tricotial oscillation, maybe an eyewall replacement cycle coming shortly. With these mini mesovortices, we have a whole lot of action kind of going on here. And so what I mean by tricotial oscillation is whenever we start seeing these wobbles, that's tricotial oscillation. So basically, it might be going an eyewall replacement cycle right now, and it kind of looks that way. You got a little mesovortice in here possibly all throughout these little kinks. Maybe some mesovortices, maybe some stronger winds and near that northwestern side eyewall. But this really isn't the talk of the tropics. Huh.
Yeah,
Where we lost?
the entire thing, that's gonna. I mean, so you.
So where did that leadership with tricotial oscillation? Okay,
Yeah, you, name terms.
sorry. I talked about it in Discord, so I just figured everyone looked at it.
Can't assume anything.
Well, if you want to learn about it, look at Discord. I've got a lot of information. Let's see, that really doesn't do it well. Yeah, I have the definition in Discord, put it on there yesterday. Okay. well,
Twice a week.
So, okay, how do I find okay, I'm trying to find the best, thing, you don't want to read a research paper right now. Basically just a wobble of the eye, that's all it really is.
What does it do though?
So whenever it wobbles, okay. So whenever it's wobbling like this, it's basically trying to generate, some sort of, it's typically before an eyeball replacement cycle. Which is basically this whole eye shrinks and then it comes back typically stronger than what it was before it shrank. And so that's effectively what it's kind of doing. And the other thing with these mesovortices, which are like this little kind of hook thing, obviously it looks literally like a supercell. Those are areas where we can pretty much expect we're gonna have some stronger winds in these mesovortices. There's one up here. That's really the most pronounced one is up here, but all along these keys, you've got some mesovortices in there. Which are pretty much just like tornadoes, so you could have very strong winds. Obviously, not gonna be like 200-300 mile an hour, but you might have gusts closer to 150, 170, or maybe not. Obviously, I'm just kind of spitting out some.
How often does the wall replacement happen? Does it just depend on the category of the machine?
Yes and no. And it can happen on any category inside the storm. It really just depends where it's at in its life. If it feels like, it gets the right amount of energy and it wants to keep cycling and being stronger, you're gonna have an eyewall replacement cycle. And this thing is not weakening.
So that it's warm out there,
Oh yeah, it's very warm out there. So if we go and,
because sometimes urban home.
oh, you want sea surface temperatures? So where that thing is at, somewhere right through.
It says that we're the 30 region is.
I mean, it's right in the sweet spot. So it's right in the sweet spot and right through here. So it's just gonna get more cool really as it goes up. I mean, that's still 27 degrees is what, 86 degrees Fahrenheit, 85 degrees Fahrenheit.
There was, I saw in National Health Service, Figuring that there's something like up on the.
Oh, yeah, well,
this was, yeah.
we'll talk about that. So really. It's gonna smack. It's gonna smack Nova, if you wanna go to Nova Scotia, now's the time to go. If you ever wanna visit, I kinda do wanna visit Nova Scotia, it might not be there after a little bit. I'm just kidding, but it's gonna, if this keeps up, it will get smacked, pretty darn good. But like I said, this here is not what we're really after. What we're really after is Invest 98L. What?
The name.
What do you mean?
That was funny.
So what we're really expecting with this one, Invest. What are you guys all confused about?
They catch the name, so it's like.
So with Invest 98, see, 98L Invest, 99L Invest, 95W Invest, that's what they're called. What we're really looking at here is this track. Right now, the track is probably worst case scenario for anywhere in the Gulf Coast. Specifically from Louisiana to Florida right now is not a, that's not a good track that you want to see with something like this early. And the worst part is, not only is it a bad track placement, most of the major models are in agreement, so that's even more worrisome. And we even have some models hinting at Cat 5. And so we're really kind of watching this one. The main one on here that most people look at regarding hurricanes is the ship model. And it's right at Cat 4, and I would expect this to actually be probably to increase once we get better, look and see what it was this morning. This morning it was still up there, but it's went up since this morning. So we really need to pay attention to this thing, especially if you have any interest down there in the Florida region. We really don't expect a whole lot, to change with this. If this enters the Gulf, we could very well have very catastrophic things going on. Because as we've looked at before, we are very warm. And from what I've seen, I'm not gonna show it, I'm just gonna talk about it. The Fiona will actually aid in increasing the strength of this storm due to, if you were on Discord, we discussed this last night, of gravity waves, maybe having a positive impact on increasing the strength of 98L. I've also seen that Fiona is actually helping aid in shear, getting the shear out of the way, the higher shear, so that way there's no shear to deal with. That would impede its westward movement towards the Gulf of Mexico. So we really are taking 98L serious. It hasn't really organized a whole lot yet. But once Fiona gets out of the way, I do expect some intensification to occur very, very shortly, especially once it gets out of this area down here. Whatever country that is in South America. But yeah, so that's something that we need to watch for. But it's gonna be, could be interesting to see. So anybody have any questions at all about anything otherwise? No? All right, Chris, I guess it's back to you a little bit.
Do you want to mention your own money?
So what?
The NWS person.
Oh, sure. I don't know if she has. If you were at the Iowa conference in March, you met Chrissy and you actually listened to Chrissy present. She is the meteorologist in charge at the weather forecast office in Nashville. This here is actually her LinkedIn, it looks like outdated. But she's been to a lot of different offices. She's done a lot of different things. She's been a part of a lot of weird things going on in Nashville, from the Nashville tornadoes to the Waverly floods. She's been there for all of that in Nashville. But she actually, most of her presentations lately have been on the Waverly floods because they were quite surreal when they did occur. So she will be presenting with us next week, mainly asking or wanting any questions you guys possibly could have about the Weather Service. I mean, I've got a Google Sheet started for myself and I'm already 1 page deep in questions. So I've got a lot of questions. I can share it with you guys and you guys can add them. But most of the questions I have are about either the interview process, the application process, or things of that nature, because I did apply to a Weatherford office in Lincoln. I still haven't heard back, which I think that probably means I didn't get selected, but I want to know what else I could have done differently. And Chrissy actually she's the one that's beefed up my resume. She's looked at my resume. She's helped me out with my resume. And like I said last week, if you want to work for the Weather Service, and you would apply to the National Weather Service office in Nashville, she would be the one that would read your resume once you get everything finalized and it makes it through the USA Jobs process, which that's kind of tough itself. Would lie on her desk. She would read all of the applicants and I haven't went into it yet, but the Weather Service does do things on a 1 to 2 year gold, silver, bronze. They do it that way, so that way when you apply, if you're in the gold category, one of the gold, chance of you getting in and 100%. Your silver, maybe if you're bronze, just by that. And all has to do with either what you have on the resume, what you've done, and the question. That's the are you familiar with meters? Are you good at radar? That's what's sound. How are you with numbers? Do you do weather reading? What are the one that I did use was all right, how much experience do you have with creating negative environment that's conducive to you? You got to watch it or something like that. I can do it, but I'm done it. And there are really questions in there. I'm like, okay, how can you communication skills, communicate well with others, it just interactive. Do a front back, maybe you're honest, national service, do it honest, but here, what do we tell us? You're not one but they are things here, which get your resume to the next level of you. Really, it's what you want to do with it. If you want to put in the work, that means, let's put it this way. When I came here as a junior, I spent the first my first semester, doing policy, going out, having a great time. Then after that, I can't do this. This is not gonna work. I need to figure out what I can do to make myself better, and I can do that out. Well, yeah, I need to go out. You found me most of my Fridays that I went to, they working on whether it was software, whether it was instrument that would be calibrated, whether that would be trying to figure out the models, sounding data, anything of that nature, medicine, anything I thought would probably promote myself to a better understanding, a better chance of doing what sort of job. We have all this. So AWS, obviously, not everyone AWS, so we want to like top 100 AWS, that's been one of the questions they rated on. Radar. How familiar are you with radar techniques? You look at satellites, radar's over there is used right now, so that they didn't look at what's there with an hour ago. Satellites. I did a study last semester looking at competitive environment in Wyoming using just satellite. This radar satellite. So based on satellite signature, I really think we would have to be able to and work together with the freedom. And so I've done these based off of what's seen questionnaires. I think they want things like that to basically make myself a part of people fine. So far, Lincoln didn't really work. Center passionate about it. But there's going to be other changes. But really, it's up to you and how that you want it. You're going to have to make something. You're going to have to. But I don't know, you look at what you like, whether that be the gym, whether that be workouts, whether that be sports, whatever that may be, if it's interfering in your money. You really need to, second guess yourself, why is it worth it? If it were the rest of my life, be my next 20 more years, not doing where I want to be. So that's something that needs to be think about if you want to career in weather service. Basically, what can I do to help myself? Because, we have to live here on campus. You want to be that. But you are as you are winning. So once you have that discussion with yourself, I think things will go smoother. Me, that business. But I told myself this is what I'm doing. And I did. I barely do it, but I have to do it. So really, it's more done. Really, you're gonna be as much out of this, there's much you can do. So if you're gonna hold on to it, into it, you're gonna expect your results. If you don't, you're over, slacking here and here, not coming hard, other. Being the local manager, I'm not trying to do nothing. Just looking at forecasts, we put in, we come on. We do that. That's why we're only doing this. It'd be this. But let's have a meeting, some stuff.
I do want to emphasize, it is important to do all of this, so definitely also do other things and stuff, because one of the guys that we talked to in anyway, was after. He was at the office, he said, one of the things is we have to people that have a lot of this stuff, right? But a deciding factor could be, okay, what else did they do? He gave the example of whether or not somebody like, it's like a welder versus whatever, okay, it shows that you can do more stuff. But that can still also.
Yeah, just make sure that we're gonna help. Like this year, obviously, A plus your leadership role. Your equal member leadership role. Right. This year, you see page, right, next week, the traffic guy. See, they, people do this.
You could better.
So, I mean, that's it. I mean, that's so.
Maybe you can speak directly to them. So if you were really lucky, you have that conversation about that.
Yeah. Right, I read it, like, my watch read and switch it into Japanese, so you can see what they're doing. He read it. It's like, but the next thing in color is, yeah, I think it's the color. But yeah, don't limit yourself, that's what I'm trying to say, but don't hurt yourself in the process.
Yeah, I think it's important to like not overwhelm yourself.
Yes.
I kind of been overwhelmed already this year, but I think I can do it. Like I'm just keep on working. That's all I'm doing.
Keep on, keep it on, man.
Yeah, maybe the ball.
So you actually get that.
I think they do. Yeah. What is wrong with you? Let me do my thing.
You just make it,
This is ready. Come on. Where's my star?
And then I'm going to.
It's I can just. It was basically for hail, but we were all very well. We were very hopeful, but people was very disappointed. But
I wasn't, that's, I didn't expect.
yeah, we respected it, but like we were so close.
But we were supposed to.
Yeah.
I hate to have to laugh, but, yeah.
That was a very quiet in this one.
Ooh,
Y'all, like, I.
We were,
I'm concerned that there are civic communities.
yeah, we were.
okay, so this is my presentation on what we did on Sunday when we were in Iowa chasing the enhanced risk. So the main threats, obviously there's an enhanced risk for severe weather in general in this kind of tri-state area. There's a 10% hatched tornado risk. At same area, little smaller. And then, yeah, wind was 30% hatched, with potentially be significant in a little bit more south, which would actually turn out to be right. And then the biggest threat was obviously hail, very big 30% hatched, with a big significant area too. And lo and behold, that's where it happened. So this was the surface chart at that point. There was a cold front coming through that was initiating the storms that were ahead of it. And also, next slide, I'll show you there's a short wave that also initiated the storms. So what this is showing right here is vorticity with geopotential heights. I circled it right here as a short wave, an area with a lot of vorticity. So basically, there is zonal wind at this point. So zonal winds means from west to east. And so basically the wind was picking up the vorticity and moving it, and then when it gets moved, ahead of it, that's what initiates the storms. So that's what we were going for. And you can also see the short wave over here in the high contour. You can see little waves in them. But yeah, that's basically where the short wave is when it started. So this is at 3 p.m. 3 p.m. This is before we chased. This is what we're looking at. Something happened to the instrument. This is why these all kind of messed up, but we can still look at it and analyze it this way. So basically, sorry, this is 4 p.m. Sorry. So what we can see here is there's a lot of cape. You can't see the exact, but there is a lot of cape associated with the storm. Pretty fat cape too. You want fat cape because there's more area for the parcel to rise with buoyancy. I don't want to get too much into this, but I'm just going to talk about what I know, because I still know about all of it about SCUTs. And you can see there's a little cap here in the mid levels. That is obviously from the cold front. It's going to be lifted up later to initiate the storms, and I'll show that in the next SCUT. You can see here 85 degrees with 72-degree dew points. That's pretty moist profile. But the main thing here to look at is the hodographs and the shear. Very weak shear in the lower levels, which is going to come into play later. And you can see the low level jet is very weak at this point. And we were hoping that it would ramp up before the sun set. But you'll see that later. It did not, unfortunately. And you can see this is typical hail hodograph. You can see here. It's not very what's that called? Not very large looping hodograph. It's it's more of speed shear. And when you want speed shear with this, with hail, it basically tilts the updraft and it keeps the water molecules in the freezing level for longer, so it can create a bigger hail. So that's basically, you want to see this kind of, something like this for hail. I think there's anything else in here. Oh, and the lapse rates too, we're looking pretty decent. Get this out of the way. Yeah, I'll make sure I don't click on anything now. Yeah, you can see here. Oh, come on. Anyway, the lapse rates were pretty decent in the 7.1, 6, 6s, 7s. Yeah. Basically, and then we can go into when we chase the storm. Here, this is when we were chasing at 7 p.m. This is when the storm was initiated. Still very fat cape. A lot of cape. I use mixed layer because it takes into account the dryness of the upper level with the lower level, so it mixes. And 2,430 joules per kilogram is pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. And then what else is there? Still, of course, you see that the low level jet did not kick in, pretty low. I think you see it like around here, still like only 20 knots. That's not very good for a low level jet. Lapse rates went down, unfortunately. So the hail was showing that it's not going to be as big as predicted. The shear right here in the surface to 1 kilometer from the surface to up here, the amount of shear in this area is 11 knots, and then from surface to 3 is only 27. The shear in the upper levels is what created the storm, basically, because we needed that for the hail. You can see it up here, and of course the photograph shows there is no large looping at all in the low levels. Still speed shear dominant. So you can see that this is just mostly hail. This can be a potential for tornadoes, but who knows? Let's see if anything else I'm missing here. I think that's all I want to talk about. Oh, also the freezing level is pretty low. This is so when the updraft happens, it's gonna stay. It's easier to get into the freezing level and stay there, and for the hail to occur. So that's pretty good freezing level for hail. Let's see. Yeah, pretty much meant for tornadoes, but we were hopeful at this point. So this is where I want to give like where we were exactly. We're in southeastern Iowa. This is about the area we're chasing at. And then this is the exact track we did. We went all the way, we stopped in Fairfield for a while. And we were trying to decide on what to do. And we decided we want to go out closer to the cold front to go to the initiating part of the storm, so we can beat the sunset, of course. That's a big part of this. So we went to Albia and we stopped here, and then we went to Centerville to chase the storm, and we basically chased it all the way back home, and then all the way back home, and then we were chased by storms at the end. So this is on GR2. We were right here in Albia. We were deciding between these storms and this one down here. I don't think we were even gonna go up to these ones because by the time we got there, it was gonna be too dark to even see them. But so we were thinking about it, and then we could see that this one was growing. These ones up here were shrinking. So we were like, okay, we'll go down to the south and go to Centerville and like chase it through this way. You can see it like trying to take the kidney bean shape, but we were hopeful at this point. Let's see. So what we did was, we went down a little bit path before this, but we basically went through the storm, like like a little bit of the rain part of the storm. And then we basically tracked it all the way as it went this way. We tracked it through the southern part of Iowa. And we just tracked it through we just continued like this way. And then we could see like the what's it called part? We could see the wall cloud this way pretty easily. It wasn't like rain wrapped or anything at this point. It's pretty cool to see. But the problem here is that, of course, we're in kind of a dead zone for the radar, but so we're looking at, I think we looked at it was like 9,000 feet in the air. So this is what we're showing in 9,000 feet in the air. So that's why we have the storm chasers to go look at the surface, so they're not just relying on these. So we see, so this is what they see on radar, and then what we see is not exactly this, but something similar. It was trying to take shape. And then, of course, so at this point, I don't know who, was it Nick who told him about the rotating wall cloud? Yeah, and then he told the NWS people that there's a rotating wall cloud, and then they put it out right away. They put out the tornado warning right away. And I don't agree with that. I don't think any of us agree with that. But we could see it here. It was trying its hardest to get rid of the precipitation away and get a tornado going or something like that. You can see the wind is pretty good, but that's, of course, is still pretty high in the air. Let's see. And then, of course, at this point, it was looking mostly just like a hail core. They still had this out, the tornado warning, for a while, but it was it wasn't looking like anything. You'll see with the pictures I have that why it was why they shouldn't have had it out for this long. Yeah, it was just becoming a hail core. You can see here, the kidney bean shape was, it just couldn't get to it as we were chasing it. So this is, I'm trying to think here. This is like when we first started chasing it, and we got down south a little bit, and we were chasing it. And this is the wall cloud that was trying to create. It just kept compacting and compacting more, and getting lower to the ground. So we were thinking that a tornado could possibly happen, because it was looking pretty good at this point. And then this is right here is the peak, because it's like really low to the ground. And we were thinking at this point, maybe we have something, and we were like, so we kept going with it. And then we would try, we did go like front of it a little bit, and then it was like, yeah, we kind of got in front of it and we let it go over us, and then you'll see how it kind of got cut off. But we were hopeful at this point. It's still pretty low, still trying its hardest. And then at this point, it was like maybe it was like it's kind of dying off because it's not as high anymore. The wall cloud's not as high. I mean, it's not as low anymore. It's more high. But it wasn't looking too bad. We could maybe see something here, but it wasn't looking good. It was like on a downward trend at this point. And then you could see, I didn't get a good picture. I took a video and I took a screenshot of this because I think it shows it very well that right here it got cut off from its precipitation core. And over here, it just like spun itself out and died. And yeah, and then it grabbed onto how would it happen? It grabbed onto another one, right? Kind of.
So with that one, you got that's out for us. So just
Yeah.
It just, said hello, little microphones. But we were also wondering if it was the handoff circulation.
Yeah.
But it was so high base that it really wouldn't have mattered because the move was just how high base. It went from an initial walkout to shortly after this.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. It was kind of disappointing, but we couldn't expect more because I'll show. So this is later. We were chasing what we had. We're like, okay, we'll keep chasing it. It took shape here. It's pretty high off the ground. It took more of like a mothership shape at this point. And you can see the layers, it's a really pretty picture though, I like it. But you can see the rain and the hail over here. Yeah, it was just a mothership at this point, it wasn't like. There's no, I'll show in, the next one is like the last slide, but and Richard Samples in his time-lapse video, you could see how it was just no tight rotation at all. It was just like very broad rotation. So you could see that nothing else was gonna happen. Let's see. Escape. I forgot to say who I went, but I went with Richard Sample. What was Jared's last name? Streeter, Jared Streeter, and I went with Anthony, we chased together, and we met with a few other stone chasers. And we met with Nick Stewart, which is, we stayed with him for a while through the storm. But yeah, this is Richard Sample, he sent me this because I wanted to present it to the club, and this is basically what he got, the time lapse of it. As you can see here, it's just broad, nothing right here, no tight rotation, it was just pretty picture, basically. I still enjoyed it because I've never seen a supercell like this before. I think it was really pretty. That's basically it. It wasn't like anything too much. We didn't get to go look at the hail, unfortunately. Because we had to head home. And then we were chased by with the low level jet, of course, that's why it was, the low level jet did not help with the lower shear at all. So it was just, it could not get any rotation going. And then, of course, as night hit, the low jet kicked in, and the storm behind us was chasing us. But through the entire way, we stopped at Casey's, and we were like, we're about to get involved by it. And we got hit by it. It was a lot of lightning at the end. As on the way home, it was pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, it's anyone has any questions, feel free.
So if I was truly encouraged by the CEO, but when I was, we were driving back from the States, the fall and storm, it was very still in Iowa, maybe it's they were. I was like, this one is like. Like, looking at it in the car, I'm like, this is the world too far away.
Where were you guys?
We were on, okay, so we were like maybe 25 and most half hour out of like. I think it's full district or whatever, we're small things, not sure, but we were putting back on the ski and.
Didn't see your lawyer.
No,
You drove down the road.
no, the SG conference.
You sure it wasn't the Cowboy Street?
Yeah, I mean, it could have been, like, the updraft was pretty strong with the storm, so it could have pushed it through with up over the top. So, yeah, it was, I mean, I wish we could have seen it, but we really had it wrong, so. I just wanted to get involved by the schools.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Not really much questions. I'm not off work. I went into Cahoga, just waited there for a while. And I was hoping that that storm's gonna go south just a little bit.
The one we were chasing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it died, man, it was so disappointing.
Yeah, I don't want it. Well, nothing else is gonna happen. It seems like I went back home.
That's a big thing.
When I went back home, the cells that came in after that, they started blowing up. They like one of them was on that. Really?
Yeah, it was along the cold run boundary, it was tech coming. Yeah, it was. We were like actually fighting the tomato one, we're getting, I'm like, what's this thing? It was a terrible time, there was the low one that didn't get into this one at all. So you cover it.
I'm a little glad that I didn't stick around because there's baseball size hail reported in the mass.
Weather,
Yes.
nice. That's cool. I really.
It's a very electrifying storm, it was that much weird. No.
Yeah, yeah. I'm looking from your just like, I am looking at you very. How did you, that's cool.
I guess we're even with that sea set of storms that were more the east.
I didn't see that, yeah.
Yeah, where?
I saw it.
There was a BF0 neighbor who you We're all waiting for it.
Yeah.
I saw that, it would be like.
No, yeah, one thing I wanted to point out is that if you look at the photograph again, where's the photograph at? I learned this over the summer. I did my own like research on it. You can see it like points down this way and there's like it's like nothing right here. You can like put this onto these storms and it like it like you can put it on here and it like take kind of the shape of the photograph. I think that was really cool when I looked at it, and you can see like most of these going for like more like this way. And there's like, they were trying to get the boat going, but it just didn't go.
Yeah, because earlier that morning, that photographs, they were a lot better looking.
Yeah, it just turned to work a little bit for that. It was nothing. Yeah. Any other questions? We're good. I think I'll end the meeting today. Thank you for all coming. I appreciate it.
Good job, Gary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Know all the terms and information.
Yeah.
I did a ton of research over the summer. I got into speaking and stuff. Yeah.
You are.
I don't know about that. I think we ended.
Half the nation.